Welcome to Fairfield Public Access Television. I'm Susan Kessel. We're here again today for Opening Fairfield Doors. My co-host Connie Boyer and I are excited, anticipating a different show here of, let's talk about our mission statement, which is...
Okay, our mission statement and the reason we're doing this show is by opening the doors of the people and places in Fairfield, we will strive to promote appreciation, awareness, and understanding of each other. And so today we're out on campus and going to look at different things that are happening out here. And of course, let's see, we better start with our guests. Yeah. And first of all, we have John Rabalinski, who is Director of Public Affairs. Okay. And we also have Jonathan Lipman, who is the Chief Architect at Maharishi Global Construction, and he's been the architect for the Dreyer Building, which we're standing in front of now, and you'll see in a few minutes. And we want to make it clear that they are separate entities. The MUM and Global Construction are two separate things, and they just happen to work together on this particular project. So we're going to start with the Dreyer Building, and then we'll move on to Student Union and the library and the EEG lab and talk about some of the things that happen there. So shall we take a break while we go into the building? Okay.
Well, it's a beautiful day, and this is a gorgeous building, I have to say. We know that in Fairfield, this is a sensitive issue, I think, among our community. Connie and I have grown up here, and we all have strong feelings about Parsons and MUM. We're happy to have MUM here and the wonderful job they're doing and the wonderful building that we're in front of. And I think that we wanted to do this tour and open this door in our community to show the people what a wonderful building this is. And a lot of people might be able to come out and visit it and see it and get an understanding.
That might be a question for John. Can people come out here at any time during the day? Should they call ahead or?
Sure, we're happy to have visitors. If you want a real guided tour, not only of this building but of campus for yourself, or if you have family visiting, we give them generally on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Sometimes we give a grander tour than others, and it is good to call ahead if you want a full tour. But if people want to just see the building, we're happy to have visitors come in and just say hi. Best to come, maybe between 10 and 4.
This building, the Dreyer Building, I know it's named after a Ted Dreyer, I believe.
Right. Ted Drier was one of our trustees. He passed away a few years ago, and he and his family gave the main endowment for this building, but it was kind of a group effort with many of the donors in the community.
What's the general purpose of this building?
This building is sort of a town hall for campus. It's sort of a town square for campus. It is an all-purpose building. We have most of the main administrative offices from the university are in this building, which before were scattered all around campus. So it's so convenient having everybody all in one place. We have admissions, development offices here, personnel, as well as the president's office. I can go on and on. Also, we have student services here set up downstairs. We have classrooms as well on the first floor, and as well as the Transcendental Meditation Center, and then we also have group meditation halls. So it's sort of all-purpose general town square, and it's wonderful because for a small campus like ours, or a relatively small population, it's nice to have one place where everyone congregates. So, and we're really happy with the design. I think Jonathan did a great job, not only from as far as these Vedic principles that he incorporated, but just functionality. It's really a functional building for us.
And Jonathan, can you tell us anything about the outside of the building that we're seeing right now?
Sure. The building is largely a conventional office and classroom building, but it looks a little bit different on the outside. The columns that we can see have stepped brackets at the tops of them, and we also see those on the walls of the building as pilasters with step brackets. And those, along with the plinth, or the detail at the base of the building, are elements that come from Vedic architecture, from Maharishi Sthapatya Veda. And conventionally, when a house is done using the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda, it won't have something like these Vedic columns on it. But in this building, which is a landmark building of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda, and which is the new center of the campus, we made a choice to include some elements that are stylistically from this system. And so that's really the one thing that you would see on the outside of the building that is unique and that anyone passing by would really associate with Vedic architecture.
Okay, what about the color? I love the color. It's beautiful, but it's not a color you traditionally think of Iowa.
Well, it's interesting because after I had designed the building, I had done renderings in a variety of different color palettes. I had actually been thinking about using red brick with white brick for trim because that is very conventional and is something that we would also see in Hen Mansion or in the historic building in the Maharishi School. And when I sent a series of different color palettes over to Dr. Bevan Morris, who's the president of the university, who was not local at that time, he recommended to us butter and white. And I hadn't actually looked at that palette, and then I put a rendering together with those colors, and it was actually very, very beautiful, and I thought he'd had a great idea. And so I can really say that the colors for the building came from the president of the university.
Okay, I guess I grew up in California, and these colors are really pleasing to me, so I don't know how you feel, Connie.
Well, I love it. I mean, the red and white would have been beautiful too, I'm sure, and like you say, it would have had some continuity with Hen Mansion, but personally, I like the lighter colors myself.
And then while we're outside, we have the fence, which is referred to as a Vastu, creates a Vastu.
Yes. Vastu is a Sanskrit word that refers to an area or a yard, including the house within it. And within that entire area of the house and the yard, the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda have been applied in order to bring auspicious benefits to the users of the building. And this yard is marked by a fence, and so we call that fence the Vastu fence.
I also have noticed that a lot of the new Sthapatya Veda buildings are landscaped really beautifully. That's just something that goes along with, I suppose, the taste in the buildings.
Yeah, is there any particular rules that go along with the actual landscaping?
Well, in fact, one of the basic principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda is that the grounds, the surroundings to a house should be full of nature and be really pleasing to the occupants. And so it really is a principle of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda as much as possible to have beautiful gardens around. And where budget allows, we all do our very best to do that.
I think that is a natural thing for all people to want to have, beautiful landscaping and gardening around your residence or where you work. So we'll walk inside now, and maybe we'll give our cameraman a break. We are in the foyer of this beautiful new building. I love the columns. I have a real thing for columns. I wish I had some in my home. Is there anything in particular that they designate?
These columns are a very traditional column form that come from the same Vedic tradition of Sthapatya Veda. And they're precast and used on a number of buildings around North America. There are quite a few of these columns at the Spiritual Center of America in North Carolina and on Earl Kaplan's house here in town. And Earl had a few left over, and we were able to have them for this building.
Darn, I wish I could have gotten a hold of them first.
Know.
Yeah, I
the
love
columns,
them.
by the way, have become sort of a logo for the university. A lot of our admissions literature, we have kind of columns along the borders, and so it just kind of ties in with this theme of Vedic architecture.
Okay, I didn't know that. Now, something that I know a lot of people have a question about is in a lot of homes, you take off your shoes. I don't know if you're required to, whether you want to. I know at my house I take my shoes off. So.
Well, we take our shoes off at home too. I'll give you the history of taking shoes off here in Drier. We opened the building, we dedicated on March 12th.
Mud.
Yes, yes. It was fine because the sidewalk was in, but then it rained and the mud dribbled into the sidewalk. And what happened was one day, all the students came in. This is a very heavily used building. All the students came in and it was just mud all over our brand new carpets, all over our new building. So they put up a big sign, take off your shoes. And we had big carpets and plastic all around here. And it just sort of stuck. I mean, ever since then, people have been taking off their shoes. And I don't think it's necessary, unless, of course, they're muddy. But
Right.
it got to be such a big deal that they actually put up a shoe rack. But it's just kind of an institutionalized thing, but it's not necessary.
Okay.
And I can certainly add that it's absolutely not a principle in Maharishi Sthapatya Veda that one should take one's shoes off inside of a house. It's just a custom.
Okay. I think it's respectful.
Yeah, and I would say that's more and more a custom of a lot of people, particularly when, white carpeting came into vogue, so to speak, and people want to keep it clean. So,
My kids and all their friends know that they come in and they take their shoes off, and they're great.
the way
So
it is at our
I
house,
appreciate it. Well, what's behind us here?
Well, this is the center point of the building here. Probably Jonathan could talk more about the significance. This is called the Brahmastan of the building, and with the skylight going up to the top.
This building, of course, is designed according to the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda, and one of those principles is that everything in nature, and therefore ideally everything that we design as well, has a center, has a core, and all of the functions are arranged around it and in relationship to it. And therefore, when we design houses or buildings according to the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda, they also have a center around which everything is organized. And in Sanskrit, the word Brahmastan means the place where wholeness is established. And that's what the center of a Sthapatya Vedic building does. It establishes the wholeness for the whole building.
And it goes all the way to the very top?
Ideally, a Brahmastan is actually open to the sky, so the sunlight can fall right down on it. We have a little inconvenience with having the middles of our buildings open to the sky here in
Winter.
Fairfield. We have winter and we have rain. So it's common in Sthapatya Vedic buildings in Fairfield to see skylights or a cupola over the center of the building, and that's exactly what we have here. And the actual thing that we have in the very center of the building marking the Brahmastan, which you've been seeing on screen over the past few seconds, is a tabletop Vedic observatory. This is a collection of miniature models of actual astrological and astronomical instruments for measuring the passage of time and the position of the sun, the moon, planets, and stars. And one of the principles of Vedic science is that we are very much a part of a greater universe, and we are very much a part of our solar system, and that there is order within us, which is a reflection of the order that organizes the solar system. And therefore, there's actually some benefit to us. We actually are able to function a little bit more coherently when we gaze upon instruments that are used to orient ourselves in the solar system, which is what these instruments traditionally use. And therefore, in Maharishi Sthapatya Veda buildings, you will occasionally see, marking this Brahmastan, the very center of the house or the building, this collection of observatory instruments which can be used in their full size to measure our place within our universe.
Did you know any of that?
Not in detail, no.
Not in detail.
I will add, Susan, that we have one of these in the school, and there's generally all kinds of smudges all over the top. But again, just an instrument that kind of align our brain with the orderliness of the universe. And so in itself, a little technique for kind of organizing ourselves just as we walk by and happen to glance at it.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, when I came out to the opening of this building, I think Jonathan gave a really nice analogy of creating an auditorium to make the sound correct. If somebody was going to design a auditorium, there's certain properties and certain things that they would do to make the acoustics correct, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And for me, that kind of put this all in perspective. And I guess if you could do that in a nutshell, I think that's a very good analogy that it helps for people to understand that are not familiar with this kind of architecture.
Do you remember that?
Well, I actually don't remember what analogy I used then, so I'll use another one and hopefully it'll do just as well. All of nature is organized according to blueprints, and if we use those same blueprints, those same rules that nature uses to organize atoms and cells and bodies and plants and solar systems and galaxies, if we use those same blueprints to design our houses, then we feel as comfortable and as at home in our houses as we do within the natural universe, because they reflect the same kind of inner structure. So I hope that was as effective as whatever I said at that previous
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was Craig Pearson, or maybe it was John, I don't know.
Oh, well, I know when I rearrange my house, I know when it feels good and when it doesn't. So I don't know.
So one of the other questions I have then is, did you build this in the mind of natural materials, or is there anything special that you used here in regard to that?
We did try to build as much as possible using natural materials. And for instance, the insulation that's in the walls of this building is cellulose, which is made from shredded newspaper, which of course comes originally from trees. So basically, this building is insulated by products derived directly from the natural universe, from trees. So that's one example.
And does that increase the price of building a structure like this significantly?
Well, cellulose insulation is a little bit more expensive than fiberglass insulation, but not very much. The budget was pretty tight on this building, and so we didn't do many of the natural materials things that do add a lot of money. There was just a slight premium paid in this building for natural materials.
Why don't we follow you, and you can talk us. We're going to go this way.
Let's go in this way first.
Okay.
We'll just look at a classroom.
Okay. What kind of classroom is this?
This is a regular classroom. Come on in. We'll tell you what we have set up for here today.
TV?
Yeah, they all have TVs, and we have a closed-circuit television system here on campus. And a lot of times the faculty will play a videotape of something. So that's all coordinated through our library. So all the classrooms basically on campus have closed-circuit TV. This room is set up right now for our visitor weekend course. We have, I think, 15 to 20 people coming today for a visit. We have these weekends every month or so. And it's an opportunity for people who are prospective students to come and just kind of see what's here, meet the people here, talk to some of the faculty and attend classes. So this is where we'll be meeting, and we don't always have roses out for all our students in the classroom, but
they match the chairs. I'm an artist, and I notice those little details.
My wife is in charge of the visitor course, and she's organized these fine touches here. But anyway, this is we have 5 classrooms. This is kind of a medium-sized one here on the first floor. And these are very, very well used. And even when they're not, it's not surprising. You open the door and you'll find students in here studying. The building really, is used a lot, and one of the reasons is because, they keep telling us that it has an effect. But I will say, just moving in here, I'm just sort of see what it's all about. Open-minded person, but not kind of making a mood about it. I was open to having some positive experience with the building, but
And I think anytime you have a new building, you're going to respond positively.
That's right. And that's the thing. You think, well, just the fact that everything's all new and it's so nice and it's convenient. There is some value to that, but having worked in here for 3-4 months, I will say I really feel that there's something more than that. Especially even, because we work a lot with the visitors and the whole admissions effort here. And things just seem to go smoother. I don't feel as tired at the end of the weekend. I used to feel really exhausted at the end of these visitor weekends, and I just don't anymore.
Kind of like being on vacation in a nice little...
Almost.
I mean, really, you go away and you experience really nice places, and you are more relaxed, and
Right.
the atmosphere creates for you, I think, the good feelings.
Yeah, well, that's a good analogy. Actually.
Next.
That's a good analogy.
We'll go to the next room, and
Okay.
I'll hand this to Connie so I don't say anything else stupid.
Okay. So we're in the basement now at the Dreyer Building, and behind us is the women's meditation hall, and over to our left is the men's meditation hall. There is classes going on right now. We're going to take a peek in just a second, but let's talk about the halls. I believe in classrooms that we have generally the students sit a certain direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jonathan, you want to talk about that a little bit?
One of the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda is that the direction that we face affects how we function, and that if we face east, we function most coherently. And so that's important for some functions like studying or trying to learn in a classroom or teaching or working. And so in a classroom, of course, the students are all facing one direction and the teacher is facing the opposite direction. And so we made a decision that it's most important that the teacher benefit from the maximum coherence. And so in all the classrooms, the teacher faces east and therefore the students face west. In the meditation halls, on the other hand, the students can face east themselves. And so when we peek into the meditation hall, though I guess you can't tell on television, the chairs are all facing east.
And that has something to do with the North and South Pole, is that correct?
Yes, there are life evolved on this planet under the influence of the power of the sun, which is the greatest force of natural law on this planet, and the North Pole and the South Pole and the revolution of the Earth around those poles and the equator and the magnetic North Pole. And life evolved under the influence of these various forces, and they have different kinds of effects upon our brain functioning. So that's really why probably it happens that we're able to discover that it does make a difference to our brain functioning when we face in different directions.
Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to mention, as I said, this building is used quite a lot, and these meditation rooms down here also kind of double as classrooms sometimes during the day when they're not used for meditation. So this one is being used right now for that purpose. I think they're showing a videotape, but we thought you could just peek in. You'll notice that the chairs are not your typical classroom chairs. They're quite comfortable for the students to sit and meditate.
I had a question. Now, the domes, why aren't they using the domes for this?
That's a good question. The domes are for people who practice transcendental meditation and the TM-Sidhi program, which is an advanced practice done in addition to transcendental meditation. Those who practice only transcendental meditation do it in a separate place. It's done for a shorter time.
Has it always been like that?
It has always been like that. And so the students have had different places where they've done their group meditations. And so we kind of set it here in Central Campus, with this building. It was a nice opportunity to have a nice place for them. But so there's two separate sort of things. And one reason is because this is much shorter. The people doing program in the dome, it's quite a bit longer, and it involves yogic flying, which you probably all have heard about. And so that whole thing is just not included when you practice just transcendental meditation. So this is just quietly, they do that here.
And we should note that you don't have to practice TM before you come to school here, correct? I mean,
Right.
you can come here from never heard of TM and come to school here, and they learn after they get here, or
Right. That's a lot of students do. I mean, generally, and we have many people who inquire who don't really know anything about transcendental meditation, but they learn about it as part of their admissions process because it is something that's not an optional thing here. It's everyone does it as part of the curriculum. But a lot of them do learn when they get here and do very well. People come from really, not only all over the United States, but all over the world, and come just kind of open-minded and generally have a good experience. So it's kind of neat to see the transformation.
How many students are you expecting this fall?
This fall, I think our enrollment is going to be about 150 in the first entry. We have an entry in, the classes start August 21st, and then we have another entry right at the beginning of October, and there's another special entry sometime just after that for our computer science program. But in the first entry, we're expecting about 150, and I'm not sure, maybe a little over 200 on all the programs combined this fall.
Okay, great. Well, maybe we should take a peek into the classroom really quickly, and then we're going to go into the Enrollment Center. If I can read that sign over
That's
there.
right.
So,
I think they're watching
we'll
a
just let you
videotape
come over.
right here. We have a course of visitors here who are just finishing a course and watching a video about the university. So we'll just peek in and see what the room looks like anyway. I hope the light is good enough for you. Just taking a video. Just to see what it looks like. Okay, so we can go over to the Enrollment Center, which is across the hall here. And this center has combined all our different student services. We have here our registrar, financial aid, student accounts. Those are the three main offices. And they formerly were across Highway 1, and the students would have to hike quite a ways to get to these things. They were all in different offices in that building across the highway. And so it's really convenient to have everything here in one place. So it's sort of like one-stop shopping for the students when they register and when they have questions. Everything's right here, conveniently located for them. The people working down here have been really pleased with the setup too, just the efficiency that it's brought to the whole university. We've really studied this whole kind of unifying offices, principles that have been done at other universities. They have some special word for it. I can't remember right now, but we met for a long time and organized all this revamping
It's
our
cross something.
Bill, what do you call the
Cross-trained, 3 offices,
and what is this whole thing? This kind
Enrollment Center, Student Accounts, Registrar, and Financial Aid.
right? Bill Christensen here is now the director of student accounts, and he has been involved with this whole. It's some kind of reorganization when we brought these all the 3 departments together. What was it called?
Re-engineering.
Re-engineering of the university, right?
We worked for about 6 months with Student Accounts, Financial Aid, and Registrar, and re-engineered those 3 offices so the students could do all those functions in one place. And it's made it a lot more convenient for them and delightful for us, too.
So that makes sense. That just makes sense. I was going to say, comment on the window. Even though you're in a basement, I love that there's light in a window.
Well, it is, again, a principle of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda that any room where you live or work should be well lit and should have natural ventilation, and so that means large windows. And it's not easy to do that in a basement, but we did our very best and made very large light wells and planted flowers in them so that it would be beautiful to look into the light well.
Yeah, that's great.
It seems to me that a lot of the principles in Sthapatya Veda design are just common sense, pleasant, enjoyable features in a home that anyone would want. Is that what you find? I mean, I love skylights, windows.
It's kind of just bringing nature in, allowing it to come in a little bit more, and so that we can commune a little bit more.
And you've defined the reasoning behind it, and so maybe there are some people that have questions, maybe don't agree with that, but the principles, I don't know how anyone can not agree with the livable part of it.
Well, the purpose of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda is to improve the quality of our life, and that's the purpose of all architecture, and that's something that everybody wants. And those principles in the design of buildings that it is obvious to anyone will improve the quality of life are principles that have been adopted in every culture.
Why do they call it Sthapatya Veda?
Where does that word come from? What is that mouthful? There are actually 3 words, Maharishi Sthapatya Veda. Ved, or Veda, is a Sanskrit word which means natural law or science or knowledge of natural law. We can think of Veda or Veda as simply being the natural sciences, but approached not through objective experiment by scientists, but through subjective experiment by people who have very, very clear experiences of the mechanics of nature just through their intuition, and who then were able to describe it. And the Vedas are the laws of nature as described by this ancient tradition. There are 40 limbs of Veda in Vedic literature, and one of them is Sthapatya Veda. And Sthapatya, or the core word stapan, is actually related to the English word to establish. And so Sthapatya Veda is those laws of nature that describe how natural universes, or we could say ecosystems, are established by nature. The structure, or as I said earlier, the blueprints by which nature organizes everything that it organizes: atoms, cells, bodies, plants, solar systems, galaxies. These rules are Sthapatya Veda, and then it can be applied, those same rules can be applied to designing the only ecosystems in the universe that aren't designed by nature, which are our houses and our cities. And when we use those same principles that nature uses to organize all the other ecosystems, when we use those same principles to design our houses and our cities, we find that there are tremendous benefits for the people who live in them, that they think more clearly, that their health is better, that they're actually more prosperous because they're able to make better decisions when it comes to work. And they're able to fulfill their desires more effortlessly. And the last of the three words in the name, Maharishi Sthapatya Veda, is of course Maharshi. And we all in Fairfield know who Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is, or as we often pronounce his name, Maharshi. And his name is in front of this ancient science because he revived it. It was really quite deteriorated 20 years ago when he started to put his attention on it. And what we practice here in Fairfield in the design of this building and all of the other Sthapatya Veda buildings in town is really Maharshi's revival of this ancient system. And we identify that by putting his name in front of it and calling it Maharishi Sthapatya Veda.
So basically he's taken a lot of these things that a lot of people feel anyway and believe, and you've designated these names and these rules, and probably if we just simplified and didn't get quite so scientific, a lot more people would understand.
Well, perhaps so, and it's certainly true that there are many principles in Sthapatya Veda which sound like common sense, and are the value of them is very obvious. And for example, gardens and lots of light in buildings. But there are plenty of other principles in Sthapatya Veda whose validity is not immediately obvious.
That you've gone more scientific with the brain and all of that, and studied to positively identify that these have an influence.
Some of these other elements of Sthapatya Veda, and one of the big areas is orientation, that the direction that we face or the direction that our building faces has certain kinds of quantifiable, predictable influences on us. That's one of the major areas of Sthapatya Veda, which there's been quite a bit of scientific and medical research on to date. And all the research to date has, as it so happens, verified and validated the predictions and the recommendations in Sthapatya Veda. And so it may well be that as more medical and scientific research is done, all of those elements of Sthapatya Veda that are beyond simply common sense may also be scientifically verified. But in the meantime, we trust them because they come from this Vedic tradition, which we found to be very, very effective in its other applications, for instance, in meditation or in healthcare in Maharishi Ayurveda. And so we're really on the cutting edge of reviving these principles and trying them out, and we're just finding out by building and occupying buildings like the Dreyer Building just how effective the science of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda turns out to be.
Well, I think it's really interesting and probably a lot more complicated than I want to even think about.
Well, I have a question regarding, did you have to decide what was going to be in this building before you could design it?
Yes, and that's part of the conventional process of architecture. It's not something special in designing Maharishi Sthapatya Veda buildings. Any architect will say that the client has to figure out what they want in the building before the architect can give it to them. Sometimes we'll work together. The architect will work with the client to help them to really clarify what it is they want. And of course, I did lots of calculations to decide just how big the classroom should be in order to hold a certain number of students. But yes, the client really does have to figure out what they want before they can get it.
And so is there reasoning why this is in the basement versus the top floor, and, why certain offices are where they're at in the building?
Yeah. No, I want to hear the answer to that, too.
Well, the placement of some of the functions in this building are placed very much because of the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda. We've talked about orientation being an important part of it, and placement, where things are placed around the Brahmastan, around the center of the building, what direction from it, has an influence upon how effective those functions can be conducted. If you have a study in a certain area within a building, in fact, Sthapatya Veda tells us your mind will be clearer and you will be able to study better. If a kitchen is in a certain place, the food that is cooked there will be able to be digested more easily. And so some of the rooms in this building are placed where they are because of Sthapatya Veda principles. And then other ones are because of the various considerations that happen in any project. The president's office is not in the basement because it's appropriate for the president to have a really nice window. The meditation halls, it's certainly appropriate to be in the basement because you spend that time with your eyes closed. So why not be in a room that doesn't have quite as good of a view? Things like that.
So again,
Sense.
common sense. Well, we hope that we've opened a door to some understanding here. And what's our next stop?
Well, let's go over to, is there anything else that specifically we want to see here, or should we go to the Student Union?
Before we go to the Student Union, to my new place. Sure. This is Brad Millett, the Director of Admissions here. Hi. Passing through. But I thought it would be nice to see our boardroom upstairs. It's just kind of a neat room, and it's got a video conferencing hookup to it. Might be interesting to see. So if you want to just come upstairs.
Okay.
This is our last stop in the Dreyer Building, and we're up here in the boardroom. This is on the top floor, and we got winded as we came up here. I guess we need to get in better shape, Susan. Or maybe I should just talk for myself. So, John, you want to tell us a little bit about this room?
Yeah, this is called the Trustees Boardroom, and it's also a very heavily used room in the building. When the trustees aren't here, many of the departments will have meetings here, or other groups will hold meetings here. The devices on the table here, this is not a Sony, and it's not a Sony PlayStation or Nintendo. This is actually a pretty sophisticated conferencing system, telephone conferencing system, and also it's actually set up for video conferencing. You can see on the TV here, there's a camera, and so they can hook up with someone who's not here in Fairfield and have a video conference. So that's the idea of this room.
And it's not your traditional dark, as you think, boardroom with dark furniture, dark carpeting, dark paneling, very light furniture, my style.
And can we say that I think you would consider most boardrooms to be the kind of the thinking tank of a building. Would that be correct? And is that the reason it's up on this corner and on the east side of the building, or is that any?
Well, actually, the location of this room was not specifically dictated by Maharishi Sthapatya Veda, but it is in the center on the front of the building, and it has a porch, and so I think it's a very desirable place to put it, but it's not specifically because of the principles of Maharishi Sthapatya Veda.
Okay, great. So I think now we're going to move on to the Student Union and tell you about some activities that happen there and show you the paintings on the wall that I really like and enjoy and are beautiful. So we'll move over to another building.
Okay, Richard's looking at a rabbit here, nibbling away, and we're about to cross the street from the Dreyer Building to the Student Union, and I think that this is a very familiar place to people that have grown up in Fairfield. Myself, I used to go over here and I used to play pool and snooker in the basement in high school and go to the bowling alley, did a style show. There's an art gallery here, a restaurant. I've done trade fairs, but I haven't been there for a while. So we're going to find out what's going on today and what it's used for. Do you want to tell us what we're looking for?
Yeah, no, it's multi-purpose as it's always been. I don't know what happened to the bowling alley, though.
Did you know there was one there?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
But,
wow, the 60s.
We certainly have room for it in there. We have a nice dance floor in there. One thing that we're not going to show you that I'll just tell you about from the front, we have in the theater here, there's quite a nice theater, seats over 200 people. We have, the students have organized this, the student government have organized a very nice screen, and we have a DVD projection system. And they show movies on campus. I think this weekend we have The World Is Not Enough, the recent James Bond movie. And it's they don't charge admission for it. It's because you can't when you show videos or DVDs. So it's actually by subscription. You have to be, kind of part of the whole club or something to be part of it. And so it's actually not open to the public, it's just for the campus. But it's quite a nice setup for the students. And what's really neat, you can actually show TV on it. So sometimes, like if the Super Bowl's on or the Academy Awards, they'll open that up and they'll be showing on the big huge screen the projection, the TV show. So that's kind of fun.
That was great fun to have a Academy Awards affair and everybody dress up and come and have hors d'oeuvres and watch the show.
Another thing I think we were just mentioning is that a lot of people don't understand, a lot of people don't come out here to the campus. Maybe if they came out and felt more a part of it, they would have more understanding. And also, when you don't understand things, it's easier to maybe criticize. And also, I know I tell myself it's okay to be different. It's okay to have different beliefs. And we don't have to always agree with everyone else to believe the same things, but we can try to understand, we can try to be open-minded, respectful, and I think that's another reason that we do our shows.
Well, so why don't we go inside the Student Union and talk about the things that are open to the public that they can come out and enjoy?
Good.
We're still on? Okay, we're still on. So let's point out that over here to our left is the bookstore. And
I know my daughter Mackenzie has come out here on occasion and done a little shopping.
Campus Bookstore has little unusual hours, but it's kind of a neat store. It's closed right now, actually. But we have quite a nice selection of gifts and different items like that. A lot of different logo items for, MUM sweatshirts and T-shirts and things. We also have collection of books and toiletries and other items like that.
For some art supplies. When I couldn't find something, I would check out here to see if I could find it here, and I have on occasion. So that's something that people in town don't know about.
Yeah, they should please be aware of it. I think it's open generally daily from 11 till about 3:30, which is not the greatest hours, but including Saturday. So it is open on Saturday during the late morning, early afternoon.
yeah, I've found several unique gifts out here, jewelry and things for your hair and
International products.
Right. So it is kind of a unique little store.
My son got 20 Beanie Babies here before they were popular, and then so he's got a valuable collection. I don't even know if they're valuable anymore, but at some point they were becoming very coveted. So the entryway here to the Student Union, we've put on this windbreaker to keep the weather out from the entryway, because that was making it very difficult to heat and cool the building. And inside here you can see there's a lot of benches and murals. One thing I will point out, Susan, the benches, not the padded ones, but the other benches have been done in our woodworking shop. We have a program here in fine furniture and woodworking. It's a certificate program, a one-year program. Students can come and become proficient in this field. And they have constructed these as part of that program. They do some of the podiums on campus, the shoe racks in Dreyer Building were done by them as well. But
Tell us about the murals that we're looking at. They're very nice. These weren't here the last time I was here. Do we know the artist?
Someone knows the artist.
Isn't
it Elaine Arnold? Isn't it Elaine? I thought it was Elaine Arnold that did these several years ago.
That sounds right to me. I'm afraid I don't know that much about them, but they are nice, and it kind of gives a nice feel of expansion, kind of the outdoors in these pillars.
In this room behind here is the Unity Gallery, which is the art gallery, and that's something open to the public.
It is, for specific shows, when we have shows. Right now there's no show in there. We won't be going in there today, but it's generally publicized in the newspaper.
I was going to say, it's usually in the Fairfield Ledger. We've actually had the Art Association have a co-show here, or a member show here, and that was really nice a few years ago. And so when there are artists showing, it's really nice to come out and visit, and I have to say that I've been guilty of not doing that. I'll see it in the paper and then just not fit it into my schedule.
I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more art activity in here in the next year. Much of the art department is going to be moving their studios and art and offices and into this building, so they'll be making use of these galleries more and more. There's another gallery that's been opened in the other corner of the building. Mainly it's been used so far by the school. The Maharishi School children have a gallery right here. And then after this wall that Richard's going down, we have our snack bar. Now,
can anyone go to that?
Absolutely.
I remember a time or two when I was participating in a trade fair that my family would go in there and eat, and great food. Maybe some unusual, different, but what a great time to sample something.
The students call it the Cosmic Cafe, and it's run completely by the students. And so, they kind of organize it according to their hours and what's convenient for them. But you can see what their menu is here. They have things like fruit smoothies, strawberry daiquiri minus the alcohol, mango juice or protein shake, things like that. Organic ice cream by the scoop. So there's
Sounds
kind
like a great summer menu to me.
So they're open in the evenings, or it just, well, I see there's hours there. Richard, can you show those hours on the screen?
Now these hours are not summer hours. It's not open in the summer. But it's been, they're open in the morning before class. They're opening in the evening from 7:30 to 9:30. And there is a nice pool table in there as well.
Oh, I wonder if that's the old one from downstairs.
I don't think so for some reason.
And you mentioned the theater. Now, is there any live productions done at this theater, or are they all done at Spade Theater?
Sometimes they do have live things here, just because Spade is used for so much for other things as well. So sometimes we just have need for more than one theater. I know they've had a ballet performance. They've used it for dance, and they did construct. It used to be just some general area in front of the stairs. It's tiered seating that goes down to a flat area in front of the screen there. But they put a small platform, quite a large platform stage there as well, which makes it a little more, formal as a stage.
I think in Parsons' days it was a lecture hall, which I guess Spade Theater was too, before it was redone.
And so then we have the basement, and what activities are happening in the basement these days?
Yeah, well, we can actually go down there if you want. Also, I'll point out our student government office is here on the first floor first, if you don't mind. It's straight across here, and, well, not that interesting, the student mailboxes. We do have a welcome center, which is actually going to be turned into our digital media laboratories very soon, so for when the art department moves here.
Okay, well, why don't we take a break and we'll go to the basement.
Good.
Okay, Connie, John, you said you're not dancing, but it looks like that's what goes on here. It looks like they have ballroom classes, English country dancing, Fridays, whole body singing. Boy, I don't know what that is. Sunday night ballroom dance, aerobics classes, singing, ballet, all kinds of stuff going on here in this room. This is really nice floor.
Is this where the bowling alley was?
You know what? That would be my guess. That this was where we used to throw the balls.
I don't remember either. So that had to be here somewhere.
Anyway,
I think this part is all new flooring to come up level with this, and they
Right.
teach aerobics right in here, because I substitute sometimes for Barb. Didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't. Learned
So-
something new.
Yeah.
And they have the lighting, so this is where they do the plays?
Oh, no, upstairs in the theater, they have sometimes they'll have a band there. Usually it's a DJ or something they'll have set up for, the dances they have here. Generally, every weekend, the students have some kind of dance sort of activity going on here, general dance activity, as well as these special ones like ballroom dancing and country and swing and all these different things they do.
I've heard there's some really good dancers in Fairfield that do some competitions, and what a nice space for them.
Yeah, it's a great space to learn, and some of those are open to anyone to come, right? Where you just need to watch the paper and
I
see
think
what those
so. I think I've
activities
seen
are.
them
Right.
advertised, so if you're interested, try and find out.
Right, just keep your eyes open. They'll be advertising what's open to the public in the paper and that. But maybe you can come back sometime and if we have these ballroom dancers or something, you could show.
I
show
think
them
that'd be
going
a good
around.
show. Connie?
I'm game.
Okay.
All right.
Should we look at any place else in this building?
No, I think let's go on if we have time to maybe the library.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, now we're in the library. We're on the west side of campus, and I think you have some notes that you want to tell us about some new and different things happening here, or new things, or
Actually,
things?
Old things, yeah. Well, one of the old things that I'll tell you about here is that this library is actually one of the most computerized libraries in Iowa. Since 1982, it was the first library in the state to use National Online Cataloging System. So they've been using computers here since that time. One thing also is that people should realize this is a resource for the community. Fairfield residents are invited to come here and check books out, and you have to get a library card here. But there's a reciprocal relationship here between our university and the townspeople. We have over 142,000 volumes here in our book collection. We subscribe currently to 850 magazines and provide electronic access to over 1,000 additional magazine titles.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that anybody could come out here and use it. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
That was actually established when our new library in town was opened, and we worked out with the university worked out with the city this reciprocal arrangement so that our students here at the university could use the town library, and then we reciprocated that way.
Do you have some periodicals that maybe the library wouldn't have?
I'm sure we do. I don't work in the library, and I wouldn't be able to tell you what they are, but I'm sure we have, some, more research-oriented or, just unusual sorts of things. So if people are looking, they definitely should consider stopping here and seeing
Okay,
what we
great.
have. A couple other things I'll mention. We have, I mentioned when we were in Drier, we have a closed-circuit television system, and our tape library is housed here in this library, and we have over 9,000 hours of audio and videotape here stored at the library of different lectures by our faculty as well as by our founder. And our students can access these lectures to study. We have viewing rooms right here in the library if they want to watch. Generally, we don't check out videotapes here per se. They're generally played here, and then you can watch them on the closed circuit system. But we also have some general viewing videotapes for people who are interested, and people can come in and just sit down in the viewing rooms and watch a tape. We have 12 computer terminals here with internet access, where students and the public are invited to come and search in the internet. And
Now, do students write papers or anything at these particular computers, or is that somewhere else? This is
sometime-
mostly for internet access.
I think it's mostly for research here. We do have other computer labs, and these days almost every student will bring a computer to a university, and then we have Ethernet connections in the dorm rooms.
That's nice.
Yeah, so the students have very quick web access, and that's all included as part of their tuition here.
There's a lot of universities that don't have that in the dorm rooms.
Yeah, we have, really nice computer services here. As well as, for students who don't have computers, we have on campus, large number of other computers available in different computer labs where students can go and do papers, research, and print out things as well. So
Great.
Now, I understand one of the newest buildings that will be built will be a computer building. Is that correct?
actually, yeah, there's going to be 2 computer buildings. One is going to be for computer science, more the technical end of computers, and one's going to be for computer art. And so that's because these 2 programs are both very strong growth areas for our university. Our computer science program has been very popular, especially our graduate program, and we have students from all over the world in it. And we just really need a bigger facility for teaching and computer labs and all that for them. And so we're looking forward to having them in a very nice building near the Dreyer Building in that complex there. So we're going to have a complex of 4 buildings in addition to the Dreyer Building on that old part of campus.
And is construction going to start right away on those new buildings?
I think the computer science building, it was just in the paper yesterday about that. Yeah, we do plan on starting construction this year yet. We had received a $1 million donation from one of our trustees actually for that. And so we plan to get going right away on that one. The computer animation and graphics program is a pretty interesting program as well, and they're going to have their own building. This is in the art department, where they use computers for creating art. So they learn, the main focus is on web design, website design, and 3D animation and graphics, as well as we have a program in digital video, which maybe we should involve you guys in.
Yes, I wish we would get some programming from their creations.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea.
That would be nice.
That's a good idea.
Spread the word.
In any event, it's quite a nice program, and it's becoming more and more popular. It's a very it's sort of a technical area, but it's an artistic area, and it's something popular and something that people can really make a good living at these days. And so we're planning a weekend in November right now, which is going to highlight our computer science program. Our computer art program, the web design, 3D animation, and video, digital video production and editing. And this will be mainly geared for young people interested in exploring this area as a career, and to see what we have here at this university. So we'll be publicizing that quite heavily throughout the state and in surrounding states, and hopefully get a large group of students who come and actually spend the whole weekend with us and explore that. So we're looking forward to that.
I hope there's some Fairfield students that might participate in that too.
Certainly it'd be convenient for them, and we'd love to have them.
That sounds great.
So
yes.
yeah, so we'd love to have them.
So I think we should just repeat so people know, if you're just tuning in, we're here at the MEM library, and there is access to the public here for the library. People can come out and get a library card and use it, and just like the students can go to the other library in town. They share resources. So I think that's a really great thing. I think our last stop, we want to go to the EEG lab, which is where research is done, correct?
Quite a lot of research. It's kind of an interesting place. Let's go over.
And that's in this building also. So we'll take another little break and hit our last stop. Okay, now we are in the
EEG, Psychophysiology lab, Connie.
And this is Fred Travis, and he is director of the psychology department here at MUM. And he thought he was going to sneak away, but we grabbed him. And so he's going to tell us a little bit about what happens in this end of the building.
Very good. So psychophysiology, it's 2 long words, but it's just mind psychology and body physiology. It means we look at something very private and personal to the individual, their inner consciousness, by looking at their body physiology, specifically brain waves, breath rate, heart rate, sympathetic, parasympathetic functioning. Here we have a rather formidable looking machine, but it's actually a series of amplifiers, almost like radio, where you can filter out the frequencies you don't need, you can amplify what you want. And what this does, it takes the electrical signals from the brain, which are in millionths of a volt. It's about 20,000 times weaker than a flashlight battery. It amplifies it to volts, 2 or 3 volts. And then what we can do is record it on our computer system. We see an example of a tracing here of someone's brainwave activity. This is during TM practice. These three are from the front of the head, these three are from the center, these three are from the back. And what we do here is we ask questions about what changes in people's consciousness, the most deepest part of their individuality, by looking at changes in physiology. And what we find is examples of increased conscious capacity of the mind grows over the 4 years of education here. And I think that is largely responsible to the regular practice of the TM program, which just gives a new experience to the individual, their deepest, most silent level of functioning, which can then be coupled with more active processing. We also see increased ability to take care of distraction, just increased ability to integrate inner silence along with activity.
So now you said this is activity when somebody is meditating?
Yes.
So if you put this on my head right now, would it be like this?
I'm sure not. What you'd have is a lot of alertness.
It would just be flat. Is that what you're saying?
The way the brain talks is by electrical impulses, and when you become more quiet, more rested, say you're falling asleep, the actual EEG activity is slower. And as you wake up, it speeds up. As you go into focused activity, you ask a question, it becomes even faster. And so what you see in meditation is a state which is, the mind is restful but alert at the same time. It's right poised between being able to go into very dynamic activity or very deep rest. And what we find is there's different patterns for different people. There's not one pattern for everyone, but that would be your pattern, almost your fingerprint, Connie. We would take it now, and then if you came in 1 year or 10 years from now, it would be very similar.
So are you doing research all the time on people, or are there just certain projects that happen at certain times, or?
Both. My whole focus here is to substantiate the concepts of higher states of consciousness that can be experienced with regular TM practice. And also for the students, because they come here for two purposes. One is to gain knowledge, but two is to develop the self. And so when they come as freshmen and we tell them this is our mission, it's important that they have some way to measure that. So all those students that wish come in and they get an EEG recording as freshmen, and then as seniors when they go out, we again take their EEG.
So that's not required, that's if they want to do that. Is that what you're
Exactly.
saying? Oh, okay.
It's a little threatening to some people, but the brave ones. And what they get is, what we'd like to have is a psychophysiological report card. Just how is their physiology nourished and nurtured with this education along with their academic knowledge.
Now, are these kinds of machines or technology, are they used in other universities in similar ways? I mean, are they looking at the same thing? Maybe not necessarily with TM, but with, people sleeping or, I don't know,
Doing
whatever.
tasks, yeah. In fact, the software we have is developed at National Institutes of Health. It's standardized EEG acquisition analysis software, and there's about 44 other labs that have the actual software which we use. This equipment is standardized equipment from Grass. This is actually an old model. It's from '78, but it's still chugging along. Current ones you fit into a suitcase, but they all do the same thing. They isolate a specific range of physiological recording and amplify it so you can actually put it on computers and use it. But this type of research is being done throughout the world to try to correlate mind and body, understand inner processes by looking at outer physiological functioning.
Okay, I understood every word he said.
And she does. Well, it was a pleasure that you caught me on my way out.
Yeah.
And have fun.
Okay.
Any other questions before
Well,
we go?
I want to just
Okay.
talk a little bit, if I may. This is the little cap that they use here to put the electrodes on the scalp, because these different readings come from different points on the scalp. So they use a little cap here so that's a kind of standardized where it'll be. And you said it looks like someone's going to get a permanent out there. There was some apparatus for a little gel and little
Clippies. And
all kinds of things they used to put this little cap on. Well, I wanted to tell this little story here. We had, must have been a year ago, November, we had a camera crew from London came and did a story here at our university. It was all about levitation. And it was from the BBC. It was in conjunction with Discovery Channel. And this show has subsequently played, must be many, many times on the Discovery Channel. Maybe some of the people have seen it. I've watched it more than once, or parts of it more than once here in Fairfield. in any event, they talked to some of the different professors and different people about this whole practice of yogic flying. They did some demonstrations by our students who went in the dome, and they had them do the yogic flying, which you probably most of them have seen. The first stages of which look kind of like hopping. But then they wanted to come and interview Dr. Travis here and talk about what's actually going on in the brain, which is actually some really fascinating research. During the yogic flying, we find that brain becomes really orderly during that time. So while he was talking, they wanted to have some person to actually demonstrate how it looked. And it turned out it was kind of late in the afternoon. Everyone was already in the dome. There was like no other person to grab. And so I got volunteered. So I was kind of hosting them, taking around all day, but I got volunteered. So they put this silly little cap on me, and there's a wire on the back of it that hangs down, and you don't usually wrap it around your neck. It just hangs down, and then it hooks up to the machine. Well, this was just for demonstration purpose, really. Fred didn't hook me up with electrodes or anything. They didn't use the goop and all that on me, but it was just for looks, like they were pretending that I was hooked up, and he was showing some fake readings and talking. So I end up...
The readings were real, but they just weren't from John.
They weren't for me. I'm sure mine would have been good too. But in any event, so I don't know if perhaps you haven't seen this show.
I haven't. We'll have to get
but,
it.
When they start talking about yogic flying, and on this show, when they actually end up editing the whole thing, and because they had me actually meditate out here on a little cushion, and then they say, okay, now John, do the yogic flying, and I practiced that, and I started hopping a little bit. So the very first image that you see on this Discovery Channel thing, when they start talking about MUM and what's going on here, and they talking about yogic flying, they interviewed a few professors, and then they flash real close up to this really goony looking person who has this cap on, sitting here on a cushion, and all of a sudden doing these little jerks up and down. And it was very embarrassing for me to see that. But I'll tell you, my wife's aunt in Pittsburgh, we went to see her. I didn't even know it was on. I had forgotten all about it. And then the next summer we went to Pittsburgh. My wife's aunt takes me aside and she said, I saw you on television last night. So,
is that your 15 minutes of fame?
Well, I guess. Well, and plus tonight. So.
It's nice that you have such a good sense of humor about this.
So,
other things you'd like to go through at the lab?
Well, is there anything that you would like to tell us while we're here?
Maybe Fred could show some of the research out on the wall out here.
Let's go out on we actually have some results of published research we can go through. It might be of interest to your listeners.
Okay.
It's out in the hallway or so.
So we just wanted to show you this one and these results. These results are published in 1997 in Psychophysiology, the leading journal in this field of psychophysiology. What we see here is printouts from the brain, EEG. These are from the front of the brain, the center, the back. Eyes, here we have breathing. These spikes are the heart. This is skin resistance. Might have heard about that for lie detector tests. And notice the breathing where it goes in and out, in and out, in and out, in, and beginning to slow down. And then this is a period here, about 16 seconds, suspension of normal respiration. And this corresponds with the deepest experiences during TM practice, where the mind is completely silent, but you're alert. You're not thinking about anything. You have no content in consciousness, but you are aware. It's inner awareness. And when this occurs, you see this complete change in functioning of the physiology. Now, just some points here. Notice it starts with an exhale, and then 16 seconds later, it ends with an exhale. And what is actually happening here is there's a slow inhale going on. It's just not picked up by the nasal thermistor. The reason I bring this out is because what we see is a change in breathing. Here, what's driving breathing is CO2 concentration. You breathe in, you breathe out, you stop, CO2 builds up. Here, what happens is what's driving breathing are different nuclei. They're sensitive to oxygen. You start to breathe in, you continue to breathe in till you get to an upper limit, and then you breathe out. So what we see here is a change in very basic machinery, very basic functioning of the body. The brain stem, the oldest part of the brain, which is responsible for waking, sleeping, and dreaming states of consciousness. In this oldest part of the brain, As we go into this new style of functioning during TM, we see a whole new level of neurons functioning. And this, plus the actual experience, which is so unique from any experience we have, it's awareness without any content, are used to support the idea that this experience during TM is a fourth state of consciousness. It's not some fancy sleeping, not some fancy napping, but it's actually a completely integrated state of consciousness with its own range of experience, its own physiological functioning. So this is one thing I wanted you to see. We'll look at this one too. This was just published this last year, 1999. And this is interesting because what I wanted to do was say, what's the difference between eyes closed and TM? So I had people sit with 10 minutes with their eyes closed, and then they meditated for 10 minutes. And other people, vice versa, they meditated for 10 minutes, and then they sat with their eyes closed for 10 minutes. And then what I compared was the first, the middle, and the last minute of both of those periods. And what I found, and that's what we see here. Here we see measures during the first minute. Here we see during the middle minute, and here's the last minute of the periods. And these are different scores. I subtracted what happened from TM, what happened during eyes closed from what happened during TM. And what we find in skin conductance, it's a measure of arousal. And this measure here, respiratory sinus arrhythmia, it's a slowing down and speeding up of the heart and the breath frequency. This measures parasympathetic functioning, which is your restorative nervous system. Also on this one over here, we see breath rate. We see all of these markers. A significant change is seen in the first minute. And this is important because what TM is not a gradual reduction of activity. It just happens to be faster than napping or sleeping or just resting. But it's actually a neural switch. We're turning the attention within. And when you do this, you take the whole mind-body to a completely different level of functioning. This level of functioning here. And what this points out very dramatically is it is a very specific technique. It's something which you do, and in very few seconds you go into this changed state. Now this is going to be in your science corner, and you can edit it all out, but we're continuing. What's the value of doing this morning and evening, 20 minutes twice a day? Because that's what the students do in the dome, the faculty, the staff. They get together in the morning and the afternoon. They practice TM, the advanced program of TM-Sidhis. What's the end result of that? And that's what we're seeing here in both of these. This was published in 91. What we're looking at here are individual, two individuals. Here's this is an 18-year-old been meditating for 4 months, an 18-year-old meditating for 8 years. The same individuals during TM. This is during eyes open. During TM, the EEG patterns were not significantly different. And we'll get back to that because that's a bit of a mind scratcher. Here, during eyes open, we see the significant difference. What we see in the person who's been meditating for 8 years is more of their EEG pattern, this rhythmical alpha activity during eyes open, as we see during TM. And this is a value of regular TM practice, is bringing that state of inner wakefulness, alertness, into activity. We see that here as well. These are group data, and this is looking at coherence, or phase relationship. Here's our short-term meditators, here's our long-term meditators. The solid bar is during eyes open, the crosshatch is during TM. We see quite a marked difference in the coherence, which is looking at connectivity, information flow. During eyes, in the short-term meditators and the long-term meditators, we don't see that significant difference. Again, bringing out that what's the value of regularly settling the mind down and coming back into activity is bringing that quiet state into activity. Now, the question might come up, these people are just sitting with their eyes open. What happens when you give them a challenging task? What's going to happen? So that's what we have in these bottom charts here. This had just come out. This has been, this has been accepted for publication. And just actually 2 weeks ago, it should be coming out in 3 or 4 months. It's in biological psychology. And what we do is we give people one stimulus and then a second stimulus. In this case, the first one is an asterisk. In the second case, it's a tone. They have to press a button to stop the tone. And we look at the brain's preparatory cortical activity prior to the second stimulus. This is a measure that's been used for about 30 years. It's called contingent negative variation. CNV are the initials. Contingent means it's relative to the second stimulus. Negative means a whole baseline EEG is just more negative. And what this shows is that the brain is more open, it's more receptive for activity. And we see this fluctuation is much higher. The solid line are people, 18-year-olds meditating for 8 years or longer. Dotted line for less than 1 year, and the gray line are non-meditators. And we see there's a much greater CNV here before the second stimulus. Here what we did is we gave them letters in between. Now if you can just imagine, you're sitting there, you see an asterisk, the asterisk goes off, one letter comes on, then another, then you hear a tone, you have to press the button, then you have to speak out the letters. And what we see here is called a distraction effect. Notice the gray line, people not practicing the TM technique, the distraction effect is greatest. It's medium for the short term, and it's just not there for the long-term meditators. And what this is bringing out is what we started in the beginning, mind and body. How can you know about the quality of someone's awareness, how their consciousness is functioning? It's a very private process, but by looking at the physiology, you can get some indication of how consciousness is changing. And this is a very important point here at the MUM campus, because what we want to do is expand the container of knowledge in the students as we give them more information. Expand the container of knowledge means greater receptivity, greater awareness, greater alertness. It means that the brains are functioning like this. They can have more silence, even in the midst of very dynamic activity, be it a lecture, be it on the ball field, or whatever they're doing. So this is some of the type of research we do here. And it's been a real pleasure to go through this in such great detail with you.
Fred, we've heard for years and years there's been this old thing about people only use 10% of their brains, or I think that's the common phrase, if you will.
Yes.
And so what you're really saying then is that you're just expanding the mind or the brain so that they're using more than 10%. Is that correct? Is that kind of in a layman's term?
Yes.
Because I think most people have heard that phrase and sort of understand that. So.
Yes. Now the 10% is more of a qualitative. It's not measured. I mean, it's not a quantitative hard measure that's come from empiricism. It's just more of a mass way to understand the idea that there is more of a full potential there. And one way to understand that is if you can picture the mind like an ocean. And there's very quiet. The depths of the ocean are very quiet. The surface of the waves is very active, and the surface of the waves are like the surface of the mind. We're always thinking and deciding and planning and self-talk and just all the things that are always going on in the mind. But these quieter levels we usually don't experience. We're not taught in school to activate quieter levels of mind. We're taught time management and multiplication tables and how to be creative and problem solving. But these quieter levels of the mind are there, and they support the active levels. And now if you can imagine a wave actually coming from the bottom of the ocean, it's a very strong wave. It's a tidal wave versus some little wave on the surface. And this is metaphorically what's happening as we meditate. We're diving to the very quiet depths of our inner mind. We're making those more connected to our surface thinking and acting. So when we do think and act, there's just more of our inner potential there behind all activity. And so we really see it in a quantitative way in terms of behavior, in terms of physiological functioning. They've done, David Owen Johnson has looked at hospital usage and found it's 85% decreased with TM practice. Now what's happening? You're just enlivening the inner intelligence of the body and also the mind. You're beginning to make more right decisions for what to do. Maybe ice cream and pizza is not right to have at midnight when it's middle of a snowstorm. And you begin to think more clearly and in a more life-supporting way, and so your whole life begins to be enriched.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things I did when I was 17. Go to Torino's at 2 a.m. I don't do that anymore.
Class reunion.
Yeah, class reunions. Go eat a steak at 3 o'clock in the morning and then have breakfast 3 hours later. Oh, yeah. So do you have anything else to add, Susan?
Well, it's just been interesting. I think that the community has seen a lot today in our show that you don't normally get to see. So we've opened a door for our community to visit and hope that they've enjoyed it and learned something.
I think we want to mention one more thing. Maybe, do we want to stop up there at the Spade Theater, or we just
Sure.
want to?
Sure, as we leave this part of the building, we'll
Okay.
exit out there.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Fred,
My pleasure, Connie.
for letting us hold you up.
Fun speaking with you and Susan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Connie and I would like to thank you, John, for sharing this afternoon with us and giving us a tour of the new Dreyer Building and the old Student Union. And right here behind us, we have the Sidney Spade Theater, which is well known to Fairfielders, Sidney Spade himself, and the theater that many presentations still go on here.
This is a very well-used facility. We have a nice theater program here, and we do advertise the different theater productions. We invite the community to come be part of them. It's a wonderful facility here if you've been to plays here, and really good acoustics and just a very cozy feeling in the theater. And I think they really do a good job here. So everyone's invited to come. And I just want to say from my side, Connie and Susan both, thank you for asking, suggesting to come out here, and I've certainly enjoyed showing you around. But just more in general, I feel good to share our university with the community. It is something that I'm very proud of, and I think it's just a matter of getting the word out and letting people kind of see a little bit what we have here to make everyone feel a little more proud and very proud of the extraordinary place we have right here in Fairfield. So thanks for coming out and making that possible.
I think just getting to know each other, there's more to like about each other, and I know one time I always said if there's someone that you think you don't like, it's probably because you just don't know them well enough, and I think that's true in the world. If you don't understand, it's a lot easier to like something when you understand something.
I would agree.
So Connie, thank you. Until next time, and thank you, John.